Hello everybody. I'm going to share some thoughts with you on my good friend Jens Fjortoft, who passed away December 2nd, 2018. I'm going to start off by telling you about the last time that I saw Jens. In April of 2018, my wife passed away. Even though I hadn't seen Jens in a number of years, many years, he was one of the first to call me. We had a nice long conversation. As always, Jens was quite thoughtful. Asked about my kids, family, the whole thing. At the end of the conversation, we kind of made one of those agreements. I'd said, the next time I was at the island, I'd let him know, and we'd get together and just get a chance to see each other. A couple of days later, I was at the island, and it was kind of in a spot where I really didn't feel like seeing anybody, and I kind of conveniently forgot to make the phone call. Typical Jens fashion, he and Per showed up anyway. And I'm so glad that he did. It was just one of those situations. It was so good to see him. It was so good to sit down with him and Per and visit. Afterwards, I had made a note to myself to say the next time I saw Jens, I was going to tell him exactly how I felt, how much it meant to me. Sadly, this is my opportunity to do that. My earliest memory of Jens goes back to before the Beatles had broken up. I kind of remember being pushed out into an elementary school carpool, and there was some new concept of twins that that was going to be in the car. I didn't even know what's a twin. That was the beginning of a friendship that lasted a half century. Early memory, Greg Henriksen, myself were over at Per's house. It was an early morning, probably a Saturday morning. Jens was still asleep, and Per egged us on to go wake up Jens. Big mistake. You woke up, it was like waking up a grizzly bear. I think he chased the three of us around the house for at least 3 hours. Pretty sure that Per, I'm pretty sure that you knew the outcome of that was going to be. Jens loved to fish. Growing up, my family had a cabin on Whidbey Island, and when you're waiting for the ferry, you would always go down to the pier at Mukilteo. So many times I'd run into Jens and he was there fishing. How a 12, 13-year-old could get 20 miles from his house to fish, I never really questioned that. But he was there quite a bit. He also loved gadgets, and I remember one time he was down there fishing, and he had a scuba mask on, and he had a spear gun. Yeah, a 13-year-old fishing with a spear gun. That would be Jens. Some of my thoughts and Jens on his characteristics and the values, my impressions of his values, the things that made Jens who he was. There are three things that came to mind as I was putting this together. First is responsibility. He was a really responsible person. Jens did have a knack for getting into trouble, minor mischief and mayhem, questioning authority, things like that. But when the rubber met the road, at his core, he was always quite responsible. And he was always willing to take responsibility. Jens never really shied away from responsibility. Loyalty. Jens was a loyal friend. You never found yourself questioning his motivations, and sometimes in the face of peer pressure, your loyalties get challenged. Jens always had your back. An underrated quality of Jens is he was a leader. He was really a good leader. His actions spoke much louder than his words. He was great at forging and maintaining relationships with people. People just knew Jens and knew who he was. And when Jens committed to something, it was good as gold. His word was as good as gold. Some anecdotes that I've got from Jens. December of 1981, Jens, Mark Green, Jim Simpson, and myself embarked on a journey to the 1982 Rose Bowl, where the Washington Huskies played the Iowa Hawkeyes. Kind of goes like this. Let's take some 18-year-olds, throw them into an SUV that had a really great sound system, more technology. Have them drive 24 hours to one of the world's most dangerous cities. What on earth could go wrong with that, right? I'm going to let the surviving members share some of their stories. I'm going to give you a couple of anecdotes. The first is we drove down there. We had no tickets to the game. We'll pick them up from the scalpers. Jens and I ended up getting 2 tickets, sitting together. We were right in the middle of the Iowa section. We were 2 pixels of purple among a sea of red and gold. But by the end of the game, Jens had made friends with all of the people in and around us. People liked talking to Jens. He had a knack for people communicating with him. He had a great communication style. After the game, we jumped on I-5, headed home. It was going to be a 24-hour drive home. About 3 in the morning, we hit the Siskiyous. The weather conditions got bad really quickly. This is where Jens's responsibility kicked in. The road conditions were dangerous. Knowing what I know now, it was about as bad as you could get. And for 2 hours as we navigated through the Siskiyous, Jens is calm, he's cool, he's collected, he's responsible, he's alert. It was him and that type of thinking that really got us home safely through the night. A few years later, Craig Venema and I had moved to Los Angeles, and over the holidays that year, Jens and a few of the Broadview crew had come down to visit us. On this trip, Jens was a little distracted. He wasn't quite the same. He didn't really want to be here. Into the trip, he admitted that he had met somebody and that he was getting married. Denise. From that day forward to the last day I sent you, that feeling that he had never wavered. He was quite lucky to have met you, and he was very, very, very content. Over the years, I didn't see a lot of Jens. We didn't drift apart. It was just, families and everything. When we got together, our relationship was just an evolution, a continuation of our childhood. We had the same hijinks, same nicknames, same occasional troublemaking. It just was an evolution. It was something that was quite very, very unique. To my friends in the Broadview crew, you guys know you guys know exactly who you are. I want you to reflect for a moment and think about the importance of those relationships that we formed back in our childhood days, and how tight those bonds are. They still are for all of us. Anita, Jens's mom, and actually to all of the parents of the Broadview crew, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for creating an environment that allowed a relationship like this to flourish. It's very unique, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. In May of 2010, I had the opportunity for another road trip with Jens. I got a drive with him from Seattle to Cordova, Alaska. This trip was typical Jens. He had things planned down to the T, where we were going to stop, where we were going to get gas, where we were going to stay, the timing of everything. Every morning you had to be up at a certain time and on the road. It was just Jens being Jens. Also, I'll point out on this trip, he was tasked, I think, by some of his business partners for bringing a trailer up for them. And he did this with great care. He was extra careful with that trailer. To get to Cordova, you have to take a ferry from Valdez to Cordova. And when we got to Valdez, we were informed that we probably couldn't put the trailer onto the ferry. For whatever reason. And in fact, it got down to maybe 10 minutes before the ferry left, and we continually were denied access. This is where Jens's people skills really kicked in, because he went and peeled directly to the captain of the ferry. He was able to sit down with him, talk to him, negotiate. They were able to hear different things, and we were the last car allowed to get onto the ferry. Once again, this is just those people skills that Jens was so good at. Eventually we reached the marina at Cordova, and it was still winter in Cordova. It was 29 degrees, half snow, half rain, 30-mile-an-hour wind. It was so cold that when the snowflakes hit your face, it hurt. We got there like right at sunset, right as the sun was going down. The dock was a sheet of ice, and I think I slipped and fell at least once or twice on it because I wasn't used to it. Jens was in his element. He hurriedly unpacked his truck, got his stuff into the bank, back onto the boat. He, as soon as he was on the boat, got the space heater. He was in his bunk, in his sleeping bag, and he was sound asleep, out like a light. This entire trip, that 7 days that it took us to get there, that was his goal, and he was right where he wanted to be. Yeah, I was smart enough not to try to wake him up, no matter what. This is the memory I'm going to hold on to with Jens. The next day, we took the boat out onto the bay, and we were out taking the boat, and he had yet another gadget. And his gadget was a pair of specially made sunglasses with a prescription. I think he had them polarized or something in a special way. And he puts the sunglasses on, and he looks out onto the bay, and he tells me, with these sunglasses, I can see where the fish are. Yeah, Jens loved to fish. Thank you.